Picking up where we left off, Joshua chapter 12, we're going to dive into a list of defeated kings. There's 31 kings in all. We're going to read through it, and then we'll jump into chapter 13 where it talks about land that is still to be taken. Just a quick refresher, they're gone into the promised land. They're taking the inheritance that God has for them. It's a picture of how God calls you and me. He'll give things to us. He'll speak things that are ours for the future, but there's a possessing or often a taking that will take place on our part. We have to show initiative. God will promise it, but we have to step out by faith to take it, if that makes sense. And so we're in chapter 12, and your heading might say the list of defeated kings. And it says this: "These are the kings of the land whom the Israelites had defeated, and whose territory they took over east of the Jordan from the Arnon Gorge to the Mount Hermon, including all the eastern side of the Arabah. Sihon, king of the Amorites, who reigned in Heshbon. He ruled from Aroer on the rim of the Arnon Gorge, from the middle of the gorge to the Jabbok River, which is the border of the Ammonites. This included half of Gilead. He also ruled over the eastern Arabah from the Sea of Galilee to the Sea of Arabah, that is, the Dead Sea, to Beth Jeshimoth, and then southward below the slopes of Pisgah. And the territory of Og, king of Bashan, one of the last of the Rephaites, who reigned in Ashtaroth and Edrei. He ruled over Mount Hermon, Salakah, all of Bashan, to the border of the people of Geshur and Maakah, and the half of Gilead to the border of Sihon, king of Heshbon." You might be thinking, I have no idea where all that places are. It's okay. It's really not consequential to what's going on. Basically, the Bible is communicating to us in the names of the time, the different territories in the Middle East, where they went, the rivers that they came up against, the cities that they came up against, as they're going through the territory that God had given to them. There's going to be a lot of names that we won't recognize. There will also be names of cities and locations that we do recognize. We'll get into that in a moment. Verse 6, "Moses, the servant of the Lord, and the Israelites conquered them. And Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave their land to the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh to be their possession." So some of the tribes had already received their inheritance. We'll learn as we continue to read that many of the tribes had not. Later on in Joshua, there will be a list of 7 tribes that had yet to take possession of what God had promised them. All throughout that, there will be principles that God will share with you and with me that we can apply to our lives even today. Here is a list of the kings of the land that Joshua and the Israelites conquered on the west side of the Jordan. This is west of the Jordan. This is before they entered in. There were tribes that decided that they wanted to dwell and remain on the west side of the Jordan before the promised land, and they were given a portion and inheritance in that land. From Baal-Gad in the valley of Lebanon to Mount Halak, which rises towards Seir. Joshua gave their lands as an inheritance to the tribes of Israel according to their tribal divisions. This lands included the hill country, the western foothills, the Arabah, the mountain slopes, the wilderness, and the Negev. These were the lands of the Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. These were the kings. There's going to be 31, I believe. The king of Jericho, 1. The king of Ai, 1. The king of Jerusalem, 1. The king of Hebron, 1. The king of Jarmuth, 1. The king of Lachish, 1. The king of Eglon, 1. The king of Gezer, 1. The king of Debir, 1. The king of Geder, 1. The king of Hormah, 1. The king of Arad, 1. The king of Libnah, 1. The king of Adullam, 1. The king of Makkedah, 1. The king of Bethel, 1. The king of Tappuah, 1. The king of Hepher, 1. The king of Aphek, 1. The king of Lasharon, 1. The king of Madon, 1. The king of Hazor, 1. The king of Shimron, Meron, 1. The king of Akshaph, probably said that wrong, 1. The king of Tanakh, 1. The king of Megiddo, 1. The king of Kedesh, 1. The king of Jokneam and Carmel, 1. The king of Dor, 1. The king of Goyim and Gilgal, 1. The king of Tirzah, 1. 31 kings in all. Chapter 13. When Joshua had grown old, the Lord said to him, "You're now very old, and there are very large areas of land to be taken over." So Joshua, who has led them into the promised land, Joshua, who is a picture of Christ, he led them across the Jordan River and into the promised land. They're taking territory, they're taking land, but they hadn't conquered all that God had called them to. And Joshua is growing up in years. And this is what is said. "This is the land that remains, all the regions of the Philistines and Geshurites, from the Shihor River on the east of Egypt to the territory of Ekron on the north. All of it counted as Canaanite though held by the 5 Philistine rulers in Gaza, Ashdod, Ashkelon, Gath, and Ekron, the territory of the Avites on the south, all the land of the Canaanites, from Arah of the Sidonians as far as Aphek and the border of the Amorites, the area of Byblos and all Lebanon to the east, from Baal Gad below Mount Hermon to Lebo Hamath. As for all the inhabitants of the mountain regions, from Lebanon to Misrephoth Maim, that is, all of the Sidonians, I myself will drive them out before the Israelites. Be sure to allocate this land to Israel for an inheritance, as I've instructed you, and divide it as an inheritance among the 9 tribes and a half of the tribe of Manasseh. So this is the Lord who is saying this. He says, I will drive them out before the Israelites. It's a beautiful picture for you and for me, because sometimes in our life there's things God will say that is ours and we have to go take possession of it. But then there's sometimes in seasons in our life where God will say, I'm going to provide this for you and I'm going to make a way for you when you couldn't make a way for yourself. This is God essentially declaring to the children of Israel, in this situation, I'm going to be a way maker. I'm going to go before you. I am going to drive them out. You be sure to do what I've told you to do with it once I do what I've said I will do. But God, the Bible tells us, watches over his word to perform it. And so when God says he's going to do it, he is going to follow through. Then we continue, and it says, the other half of Manasseh, the Reubenites and the Gadites, had received the inheritance that Moses had given them east of the Jordan, as he, the servant of the Lord, had assigned it to them. It extended from Arior on the rim of the Arnon Gorge, and from the town in the middle of the gorge, it included the whole plateau of Medeba as far as Dibon, and all the towns of Sihon, king of the Amorites, who ruled in Heshbon, out to the border of the Ammonites. It also included Gilead, the territory of the people of Geshur and Maakah, all of Mount Hermon, and all Bashan as far as Salakah. That is the whole kingdom of Og in Bashan, who had reigned in Ashtaroth and Edrei. He was the last of the Rephaites. Moses had defeated them and taken over their land. So this is a portion of territory that God had defeated these enemies of Israel, but he used his servant Moses to do so. But, verse 13, the Israelites did not drive out the people of Geshur and Maakah, so they continue to live among the Israelites to this day. This is a recurring theme that we would see take place throughout the book of Joshua. God had told the children of Israel to drive out the inhabitants of the land, to take them out completely. And many times the Israelites would take possession of their inheritance, but they would not take complete possession. They would choose to allow people to remain. The Bible might use phrases like, well, the enemy refused to leave. What it's really saying is Israel refused to drive them out all the way. And it's this picture of how the Israelites wouldn't go all the way with all that God had commanded them. And because of that, they would allow remnants of the enemy to remain. And in your life and in my life, a principle that we can take and learn from, extrapolate this and apply it to our own life today, is that there's things in our life that God will drive out and will use us to drive out of our life. But we have to be careful not to allow the enemy to remain. We have to be careful not to allow remnants to be left over. We have to steward our own life and our own selves well. As the Israelites allowed remnants to remain, these remnants would be a stumbling block for future generations to come. It's not just us. It's not just for us. It's for our kids. It's for our grandchildren. It's for our future. The legacy that we leave on the earth is that from generation to generation, as for me and my house, like Joshua said, we will serve the Lord. All right. For to the tribe of Levi he gave no inheritance, since the food offerings presented to the Lord, the God of Israel, are their inheritance, as he promised them. Because they were the priests, because they served the Lord in every tribe, they had responsibilities all throughout Israel. They did not receive a portion of land. The Lord was their portion. Verse 15, this is what Moses had given to the tribe of Reuben according to its clans. The territory from Aror, on the rim of the Arnon Gorge, and from the town in the middle of the gorge, and the whole plateau past Medeba, to Heshbon and all of its towns on the plateau, including Dibon, Bamoth Baal, Beth Belmeon, Jahaz, Kedemoth, Mephath, Keratham, Sibmah, Zerath Shahor, on the hill in the valley, Beth Peor, the slopes of Pisgah, and Beth Jeshemoth. All the towns on the plateau and the entire realm of Sihon, king of the Amorites, who ruled at Heshbon. Moses had defeated him, and the Midianite chiefs, Evi, Rechem, Zur, Hur, and Reba, princes allied with Sihon, who lived in the country. In addition to those slain in battle, the Israelites had put to the sword Balaam, son of Beor, who practiced divination. There we go. There's a guy that we've read about before, Balaam, who was a man who really, it says, practiced in divination. He was a witch. He practiced in witchcraft, and there's a story earlier in the Bible about this man who really tried to put curses on the children of Israel, but God turned the curses into blessings. But even beyond that, Balaam had heard from the Lord, but he didn't listen to the Lord. Why? Because he desired wages of wickedness. He desired gain rather than godliness, and he dies as the children of Israel conquer territory that God had given to them. The boundary of the Reubenites was the bank of the Jordan. These towns and their villages were the inheritance of the Reubenites according to their clans. This is what Moses had given to the tribe of Gad according to its clans. The territory of Jazer, all the towns of Gilead, and the half, the Ammonite country as far as Aror near Rabbah. And from Heshbon to Ramath-Mizpah and Betamin, and from Mahanaim to the territory of Debir, and in the valley Beth-Haram, Beth-Nimerah, Succoth, and Zaphon, with the rest of the realm of Sihon, king of Heshbon. These towns and their villages were the inheritance of the Gadites, according to their clans. This is what Moses had given to the half-tribe of Manasseh, that is, half the family of the descendants of Manasseh, according to its clans. The territory extending from Mahanaim, and including all of Bashan, the entire realm of Og, king of Bashan, all the settlements of Jair and Bashan, 60 towns, half of Gilead and Ashtaroth and Edrei. This was for the descendants of Machir, son of Manasseh, for half the sons of Machir according to their clans. This is the inheritance Moses had given when he was in the plains of Moab across the Jordan east of Jericho. But to the tribe of Levi, Moses gave no inheritance. The Lord, the God of Israel, is their inheritance, as he promised them. So we've read about the land that is still to be taken, which we'll continue to learn about in the following videos and chapters. We learned about tribes that chose to stay on the west side of Jordan in the land that they received, the portion that they received, and the Bible continues this phraseology or this theme of sharing with us that the tribe of Levi, who are the priests of the Lord, they had no inheritance because the Lord was their inheritance. They didn't need land. They had the Lord. The Lord was their portion, and they never lacked. It's a principle for you and I to know about in our life today. If the Lord is your portion, you will not lack. So often in this world, we're looking to land for security. Land is not our security. The Lord is our security. Put your faith, put your hope, put your trust in him. He's your portion. Be blessed today.